All right, welcome to another podcast. And today it's going to be about the new Ishmael with Intel. Wait till this hits the printing press. So, whale, if we're reading this correctly, is thrown out. That is fish. When dealing with the service of the slaves, therefore leading to the next guy, the famous Ishmael, which a lot of people want to laugh about Ishmael because Ishmael is a famous name in Saudi Arabia. But if Ishmael is for the slaves of Abraham's vision which faced west, it was a horrifying darkness, Kozak al-Yom, and Yom means water in west side, and beware of horrifying water at that, or in a sense that they may have poisoned Jesus at the cross thus far. But those are vague. So Ishmael, the next in line, what happens to fish? Is fish going to die? I don't think so. He is just thrown out if the implications are that the servant of Damascus, and Ishka is a root of Damascus, Ishka meaning fish, and the servant of Damascus being the first servant of Abraham, plus the name of his village, has to correlate with fish one day and somehow. All right, we're back. So, some intriguing information. Genesis 15. The servant of Damascus is actually called Mahir, which word is Meshech, which kind of rhymes with Isaac's, which means fish, and looks that way in Hebrew. And again, in Genesis 24, who is suspectfully the same servant, is called Abed, which does mean slave, and is called an older servant. And the word older is Zach, which is still relative to Isaac fish. So in a sense, there's a lot of relativity to this person and fish. Ishmael, who we are claiming is either brown leaves or green leaves, and who we are claiming as brown leaves are literally the brown leaves born in the house of the north. Ishmael means north, are indeed the very small amount of brown leaves that you see over the wintertime and that green leaf you see over the wintertime, making the original house of the north, which is what Ishmael's name means, which is north, a recognizable feature. Many brown leaves at the floor of the wintertime show that the beginning of this idea is small variation coming as slaves out of Egypt and followed by Joshua after Moses, who is represented as Ephraim, West Africa, the direction in which Abraham's vision, he's falling asleep, but the leaves aren't falling over here, was in, and Ishmael comes up. But does Ishmael not come up after the servant of Damascus? And yet we're still studying the servant of Damascus as the root word fish seems to expand, and some local names given to that guy seem to expand the idea of whale's dismissal, or the fact that he was rich, but was dismissed and will not be shown or showing the Hagar and Sarai material. And the Hagar and Sarai material are given over to Ishmael, whose representation, Sarai means coming out of Egypt, seashore, Sarai seashore. Also Sarai means border, trees, princely people. Prince Ishmael should indeed look like a very small band of either brown or green leaves from the United States of America who were made in the United States, versus what's the concepts of the Saudi Arabic people and Ishmael, Hurricane Ishmael, not to mention that we ourselves are going for green-eyed people for at least 4 genealogies thus far. SeaWorld Free Willy shows a whale we're considering has green eyes when it comes out of the water. Jonas the whale we're going to study real fast and show the connection between Jonas and Joshua. Jonas, I think, is from Nineveh, and Joshua is son of Nun, as far as I can remember. And we're going to look that up real fast. That was correct. Nun and Nineveh. And as you see, you're getting consonants, not vowels, in Hebrew and Semitic language. So Nun is a pretty heavy, and Nineveh, a pretty heavy connection between West Africa. And the other fact is that Jonas the whale is only connected outside of his own story as being not only head wounded in his own story from an east wind, and we're just getting to this good stuff, air memory plus electric, but his only other relative story is with some guy related to West African slaves in Ephraim, West Africa again. If this is accurate, Get Behind Me, O Satan is right after Jonas the whale is given to Peter, who is there called the son of Jonas, or Bar Jonah. That is that Jonah was not the one behind scene. What was given to the equivalent was false scribes, which is rewriting of the Bible, elder people at this time, as if beauties in the Bible were going with elder scenarios and frustrations, cross-cultural, could all be equated to the slave time frame if Jonas the whale is a slave. Electric and air wind memory. East wind, Jonas blotted by the east wind. Ishmael was seen carrying a skin of water at Beth El Roi. Ishmael seems to have one verse rewritten kind of sorta, as he is shown seeing the backside of the one who sees him. The word in Hebrew is a car, and Greek seems to be opposite. Wow, a lot of information. Currently, our llamas at Back South America, Peruvian have no humps, they have no water. So we're going to be studying that, and If we are correct, a horrifying darkness, Kozak al Yom. On the note of the llama, we have no humps, we have no water, yet the tallest waterfall, Jeremiah 19:30, slaves go north to south and wind up in Venezuela, a place with the tallest waterfall. Yet, if you look around the corner from there, llamas have no humps. What if fish was thrown out? Ishmael, the next slave that we can think of, is on at the only conductor of our Hagar and Sarai material, and you don't see any fish resemblance. You do see a llama's toe in South Africa, South African South Pole curl inwards. That's sideways. A llama's toes curl. And yet you're not getting the water. And another noteworthy feature is that Christmas hat. Llamas are simply missing the Christmas hat. So an all-around director's change. By y'all's vote thus far, Abraham is thus far wanting another custodian or wanting another servant. Fish is rich. Yet if you look at the ram's horns idea with one ram horn bigger than the other, you'll see that Isaac's is the one to catch the ram's horn, which seems to be the llama's toe. But the llama's humps seem to not be there, and so there is not a skin of water for Ishmael. Yet Ishmael is indeed giving a skin of water, and we're going to study that real fast and see what the connection to camels and the word camel is to our hopping llama. The llamas hop and the reindeers hop, giving them one connection. But the Christmas hat would leave from henceforth, or at least be displayed as a polar opposite mental, I think, for the safety of our own community in America. We're going to get to these brown leaves. That is the size of the house that we have in America, which is very small, that you'll see the youngins being born in the winter north. Ishmael means north and also means left, as in right and left side. Could it be that even through the influence of other Ishmaels, that these brown leaves that you see as a very small group that make it through the winter are indeed the representation of those born in the winter coats for the first generation? And biblical notes, Israel means trees, and the top of the pyramids simply are small, or what looks to be far away. 3D Ishmael. Indeed, camels are mentioned in Genesis 12 as Pharaoh gives Abraham and Sarai some camels to leave with. Pharaoh means earth. And so they're leaving Africa as the first mention of camels. Well, that was interesting. And so, as we're looking at these camels and these llamas, we're going to get to Bermuda the Island. And what looks like Bermuda the Island is a catchy place. And, to us, you're going to see the back of the Naps West African little guy down there. And you're going to see them mixing from head to toe. But when Sarai goes to Egypt, Sarai means seashore, they had to hide Sarai because the princely people wanted to mix. Sarai then chooses her own child, which we're suspecting is with Ishmael. We think it's in the west where Abraham has his vision. And behold, you get Bermuda the Island, one mixing from head to toe and the other one evidently not wanting to. Kind of participating. Let's take a look at what llamas would look like on the one-line mountain that is at the back of the Naps of the little guy in Bermuda the Island. We have no McDonald's and we don't mix. We'd be amongst the First Nations to say we don't mix, but amongst other wealthy nations which don't have any McDonald's. The Slavs. Things to look out for. And I suspect we have two small mixed people, one from Ethiopia and these days from Ephraim, West Africa, and would be learning about these concepts for the first time in the United States, would still have a very small dominion, including those brown leaves that we're looking at, and the difference between Ishmaels, and we're just getting into that idea. Bermuda is not saying camels, but Sarai comes out of Egypt, and it looks like we're in Egypt, Bermuda the Island, with the first known camels in the Bible. Alpha, Mega, Zeta, but she chooses her own child, and the second half coming into America seems to have the bar we don't mix coming into the second half. Mind you, this is held down by our small mixed people, in which Hindu people would have stolen all these rich gifts themselves. We stolen it for ourselves. Further investigation into the camel shows that when Isaac is getting a wife from his homeland, that she also carried a jar of water like Ishmael on her shoulder, and this time you'll see the jar of water is for the camel's thirst. They had 10 thirsty normal water-bearing camels. Our llamas have no hump, yet the tallest waterfall on earth may be right next to that. My astonishment right now is that there are no llamas for our back of the Naps slave, whose toes curl to South Africa, yet you're getting ram's horns. One ram's horn is bigger than the other somewhere in the Bible, and you're getting Ephraim Joshua blowing on a ram's horn. South Africa is the even Ecuador hilltop crisp, and if you take Moses' arm, then Joseph, the father of Ephraim, may be South Africa. That is for the slaves, one half of Africa. And if we don't mix, our llamas have no humps or white. And the people that we met during our Hagar and Sarai display, who did not mix, would indeed be invited to Africa to own half of Africa. Ishmael the Saudi Arab, we're going to go over to the Arabic side, and we're going to look at a two-faced, two-armed individual from the Black and Caspian Seas. The Caspian Seas is his arm, and his face is the Black Seas. And he's walking over Thailand, and he is wearing a thobe, and his thobe looks totally Greek. And he seems to represent the Western world coming into India. We have a fabled story here of them walking in a thobe and falling over because the thobe was so tight on a mountain, being injured. They discovered many healing components and health formulas. India. But as we look at the 12 time zones, Saudi Arabia, which are described biblically as being a Miriam's territory, or a tri-state, or a skinny people's territory, or one half from Saudi Arabia to Texas or New Mexico at back of the naps, which show a 12 time zones difference, which is like night and day. Mind you, the choices of the skinnies after our black people are working, which seems to go down to One Line Mountain and work what is a wider scale before landing on tri-state skinnies at Saudi Arabia to New Mexico, 12 time zones. That is to work Moses' territory, potentially being Buffalo's territory, before landing upon skinnies with the same work attitude that was given over to real whites. Seems to be very preferable, the newer stuff. Okay, Ishmael South, and the thobe that we're seeing on Ishmael people from Saudi Arabia, who tend to make brighter the scheme of some kind of Ishmael who is a slave, who would be homeborn first generation mixed and quite young, yet would own the territories of the United States, is the Saudi Ishmaels. So we have the penguin. Introducing the penguin, and the penguin looks like he has a thobe. And I know most people have always wondered about the penguin, and it simply almost looks like a thobe. So what we're going to do is not only divide Texas to Saudi Arabia by 12 time zones, but Texas to South Pole, to the other side of the South Pole, to see exactly where their thobe-wearing penguin would fit in the most. And there you have the thobe structure that we're seeing from Black and Caspian Seas, two faces and two arms from Black and Caspian Seas, wings of Saudi Arabia, and is walking on Thailand, yet is wearing some kind of thobe, potentially even a Western Greek thobe going into India. So that these very small amount of penguins are either representing a small quantum of people, or the very rare opportunity for mixed people in a larger group to actually make it to the South Pole, or just an overall black and white realm, or potentially black and white people know each other without mixing, or the middle of the Garden of Eden as South Pole face value. South Pole face value. So indeed, one of the other interesting portions about two different Ishmaels, one seeming more historical within the Arabic world, one seeming more literal in the biblical world, Ishmael meaning north, and the Israeli tree, small people. What we're left with, brown leaves and green leaves in the wintertime, is the small bunch that you're seeing through the winter that made it in the original intact form that we're in. And not a lot of stuff was spared today, but Ishmael's name seems to shine, and we just want to try and show that. Well is thrown out. Ishmael is next as a servant or a slave, and Israel, which means trees, still is coming up as a servant and a slave. We are suspecting to get prepared for other people who are mixed from the United States of America to actually lead our Hagar and Sarai material on the day of our presentation. Now that's what's up, because fish is acquitted, fish is leaving, but yet fish is very wealthy. Some of those stories, like Rachab, double white, and fish, are given to Joshua after Moses, and is still a part of the slave story, Rachab, double white, and fish. But we think that whoever was praying, Abraham himself heard the prayer because he searched his soul, and it would not be Damascus, which could mean fish, who finds a wife for Isaac, which means fish, Slav in Genesis 24, to Ishmael, which means north, and left-handed one, or left-sided one. Sarai means seashore, and the seashore line seems more linear in Oregon and Washington State at Turtle Turn, Michigan. Sarai means seashore. Seashore is more linear. Ishmael North, mixed people to host the actual slave event amongst billions of different immigrantal nationalities, and to even say the word Ishmael. Those who knew the number of leaves and inquired about why the leaves do stay through the winter were Russian white people. That's going to light our first generation mixed people up like a Christmas tree. And the Ishmaels of Saudi Arabia are looking more South Pole. On the flip side of the South Pole, where you see that thobe on a two-faced, two-armed individual from Black and Caspian Seas, which shows that face value for that thoroughbred penguin on the black and white level. Ishmael Shiva leaves with green brethren from America. A famous quote from David, considered to be in Israel from Egypt small to begin with, and a famous leader afterwards. I shall make thy enemies, and we have many, many leaves, thy footstool. Until next time, over and out.